go ahead. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yulia Zhernevaya. I'm the head of strategy and growth at Giveffect. Giveffect is a software platform for nonprofits, and especially for those nonprofits who are just tired of using multiple systems, something for donors, something for volunteering, grants, fundraising, you name it. And they're ready to make a switch, have everything in one place, have one point of truth to achieve better fundraising results, financial stability, eliminate manual work, but also work as a united team. And my co-host, Andy. Andy, I'll pass it to you to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Andy Choi. I am the founder and CEO of Do Good Points. We are a social enterprise that comprises of both a 501(c)(3) foundation and a for-profit technology company. And at the core of everything that we do, we believe that nonprofits should be profitable. And we build technology, business program, and services, including services for Google Ad Grant, that enable what we call profit with purpose, right? So how do we get nonprofits to digitize and expand their reach and goals and fundraising?
Awesome. Amazing. Well, for those of you, I know some of you have been with us for the past two sessions, some of you just joining today for the first time. So we thought it will be a great idea to do a little recap of what we've learned together for the past 2 weeks. So first thing first, we started with what is Google Ad Grants and why does it matter? And in the first session, we were discovered a few things. One, Google Ad Grants is $10,000 a month, and Google Ad Spend, not annual, $10,000 a month. It's not actual money, it's an ad spend, and if you don't use it, you will lose it, right? We also learned that any 501(c)(3) nonprofit can apply for the grant. It takes less than an hour, and you should hear back within a few business days. So if it's been a weeks and you haven't heard anything, and they recommended to get in touch. Most likely there's something maybe with the application, right? So you can research further. And last but not least, we did talk about that you need to think about the strategy and if this is the right grant and initiative for you, because it does require some learning curve, but also time commitment. On average, it takes 10 to 20 hours to manage the grant, right? So really before jumping into it, kind of thinking through is the recommendation. What about the second session, Andy? What was the
Yeah,
key
thank you.
takeaways then?
Yeah, so I mean, so the first session, as Julia pointed out, we really kind of did a high level overview in regards to what it is and what it's not. In the second session, we dug into it in regards to what it actually takes to actually run and maintain the grant, right? So some basic information. One, the grant is restricted, right? So meaning that there are restrictions on the grant. So it does take work and you do have to invest into it. So in addition to the 10 to possibly 20 hours per week, who's actually going to manage that, right? And what are the actual strategies? Some of the things that we talked about is there are outside services available, but that there are also resources available from Google that teaches free courses and workshops. We also offer free courses and workshops as well, where you can train your own internal team or yourself to actually maintain and manage the grant. But you need to be realistic in regards to the work. It's not a set it and forget it. You have to actively pursue it. People make a full profession out of it. And some of the strategies that we talked about is a long-term strategy. This is not a silver bullet, right? You can't expect, a $10,000 grant to all of a sudden get you $10,000 in donation dollars. 10,000 sounds like a lot, but it's actually really not a lot, right? In the grand scheme of things. And you can imagine the competition you have on a platform like Google. So then realistically speaking, thinking through strategies like driving CPCs, clicks, which is awareness. Second point being, leads, which is a cost per lead or a cost per registration. And then the third being CPAs, which is a cost per action, most likely a donation that you're seeking for your organization. So those are general three pillars that we talked about on the last one. So make sure to check out session 2 for some more information there. But going straight into it, let's jump into session 3, right? So session 3, we're talking about what is the actual long-term strategies and what is required to be successful and really invest into the Google Ad Grant. So, Yulia, maybe if you can kick us off here, why is a CRM important to a strategy like Google Ad Grant?
Yeah, no, it's such a good question. And if I can put it in one word, I would say it's relationships and focus on relationships. I think you touched upon previously, speaking about the purpose of Google Ad Grants, right? Google Ad Grants is intended to first bring awareness to your organization. Awareness, and a lot of people probably don't know that you exist. So once they do that Google search and when they discover you, they're finally on your website. So if you don't have tools such as CRM or any marketing tool, right, that helps you to capture data, like different forms to capture who is coming, what are they intent, what are they looking for, right? At the end of the day, you will put so much work into running the ads. But if they come to your website and they're not taking any action and we're not capturing them, basically you're losing a big opportunity to build long-term relationships. And at the end of the day, convert those website visitors to your volunteers, donors, clients, you name it, right? Depending on your strategy. But also, I do want to highlight that if you don't have CRM or those tools on your website that can help you to do that, you're also essentially wasting your time a little bit because you're going to spend so much hours, like 10 to 20 hours a week to manage the grant, right? And it's just such a valuable time. So I would recommend everyone who considering the grant first start with, okay, what tech stack do we have? And do we have those tools on our website, like CRM, marketing tools?
I think that's a great point because tactically speaking, and this is an example analogy that I use a lot when it comes to the Google Ad Grant, the Google Ad Grant is meant to connect you to net new users, right? So people that have search intent that are actively looking for or researching or pursuing your organization or cause, product or services. They are searching for something, just like the way you and I use, and everyone else on this call uses Google. They go on there, and the ad is to connect them to you as the best fit, right? So you are the answer to their question. You are the answer to their research, what they're looking for, whatever else. But the analogy is that that allows them to knock on your door. So they click, which is knocking and coming to your front door. But Yulia, to your point, it's really the CRM aspect of it is like, what do they do after that, right?
Yeah.
So then maybe if you can go into a few more details of like, what are some of the engagements? What are some of the things that are actually like they can interact with, which to your point helps build the relationship?
Yeah, perfect. And I put a few examples because I'm a visual person. I always like to look at some examples because make it easier to process it. So let's take a look at them, maybe a few scenarios, right, that someone can potentially utilize it and go from there. So I'm going to share my screen. And first thing first, right, we want to talk, I think, about top of the funnel and awareness. I think last time when we spoke, you mentioned that the good kind of action to take on the website is the sign up for a newsletter. And on many websites, this is just some examples I pulled from our clients, but there are so many different examples. And if anyone on the call from this organization, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I thought your examples are great. But again, going back, so I think example number one is awareness campaign, right? They come on your website and the action can be sign up for a newsletter. On many websites, the pop-up just doesn't work for me right now, but there's a pop-up that allows you to sign up for a newsletter. You can have a section like this. Once someone clicks to sign up, you get to sign up for them. Why I pull up this example in specific, because a lot of time I see newsletter signups, you just sign up for our newsletter, which is great. And I think it's a good way to do it. But I like this example because they have some segmentation right here. They're not only asking you to sign up for a newsletter, but they're segmenting, are you interested in events, monthly newsletter, volunteering? And that's the first stop, right? To help you understand what are the interests of each specific person and then start creating long-term engagement. So I'm curious, Andy, from your perspective, on newsletter signups and Google Ads correlation.
Yeah, I mean, this is great because what ultimately the Google Ads, as part of the setup process for Google Ads, for each ad and campaign, it needs to lead to a landing page, right?
Mhm.
So that analogy of like leading someone to the front door, right? So then and once they get to the front door, which is this, and this is this is a great landing page, by the way. So you have top of the fold, you have a clear call to action. And then you have exactly the users are knowing exactly what they're signing up for, right? Like our stories, family stories, the headline, and all of those things.
Mhm.
So this is a great example of a landing page. And then from here, this is what we call a CPL or
Mhm.
CPR, right? Which is a cost per lead or cost per registration.
Mhm.
So this is more middle of the funnel, generally speaking,
Gotcha.
right? So then
Mhm.
middle of the funnel is like really engaging people raising their hand
Mhm.
and saying, I'm interested, right? I'm willing to provide you my information, which is my name and email. And Yulia, to your point, like I'm a fan of progressive profiling, which is capturing data along the way, right? So then again, people are not going to just throw their data at you, but you give them opportunities. It's a way to slowly
Yeah,
build trust, right? Like it's like meeting someone in real life and shaking their hand and say, hey, my name is Andy. Hey, my name is Yulia. Like it's like, oh, this is, I'm
great.
from New York or I'm from the Bay Area, right? Like it's that think of it that human interaction, right? And that's again because the CRM does that because Google Ad Grant doesn't do that. All Google Ads are
That's
doing,
right.
people on this call need to be really aware of this, is that it doesn't build a relationship. It gets them to the front door. And you need to engage, and in the interaction after that is where the relationship actually happens.
Awesome. No, completely agree. And I've got another example for all of us when it comes to middle of the funnel. I think we also spoke briefly about it. When you think about Google Ads strategies, right? Where do you want to bring attention? So one of the great strategies is attracting more volunteers. There's a lot of people who might be looking for opportunities in your area and location. So speaking of those dedicated landing pages, your volunteering page, a great spot, right, to attract those individuals. So here's an example. But again, what I want to drive here, right, we have a beautiful page, video, great. And if I'm individual and I want to start, I can click get started. I can click I'm individuals, right? And it's all about taking further actions. So, and CRM or your marketing tool is what allow you to take those actions. So if you're just on the page and you learn about volunteer opportunities and then your next step is to email someone, it's a barrier. It's a barrier because I need to email, I need to put it work. So I think if you give your supporters some easy ways to sign up to volunteer, to browse the calendar, to understand what volunteer opportunities are there, and so on. Like here, we can click volunteer calendar. I can look it for myself and I can go ahead. If I'm ready, I can sign up. Another option that I see, yes, I can get started. I can learn about more volunteering, but this one offers you just sign up for volunteer newsletter, which I thought is great because from here you can start. They're not ready to take action and go and volunteer for you tomorrow,
Yeah.
but this is such a great way to start the relationship.
Yeah, I think this is great because then you have multiple opportunities to engage the user,
Mm,
right? To engage the donor. Like, so this is one thing I want to be clear of. Like every nonprofit we talk to is usually like, how do we get donations? How do we get donations, right? Like, how often does someone go to, a website for the first time and then decide to pull open their wallet and pull out a credit card and say, here, take my money, right? Like, it's very, very rare. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but again, focus on building the relationship, not the transaction, right? Because volunteering, I love this example because that is one of the best ways to use Google Ad Grant. Like your volunteers usually for a lot of organizations are the people that are willing to donate to you. Because if
mhm.
they're willing to donate their time, that can be as that relationship develops and is nurtured, they're also willing to donate their resources, right? Their financial financial resources, right? So then really all these different touch points is a great way because you're increasing your chance and opportunity to drive a CPL, cost per lead, or a cost per registration, right? So then it's not a one tactic, a one trick pony, right? So then the CRM is allowing them to engage in different ways, right? One other step point I would love to share is that an average person usually needs about 16 to 18 impressions before they ever choose to engage with a brand, right? So even through Google search, because then we're
Yeah.
busy, people see things on their phone and then maybe like I'll get back to that later. They see it through an email or an ad or whatever else. So when you have their attention, you really need to be able to capture it, right? Like, and Yulia, you already mentioned this earlier, like not doing so is a missed opportunity and it's a waste of the Google ad grant,
Right.
right? If
Wow.
once your door, you really need to engage them.
16 touch points. That's a lot of touch points.
Yeah.
So I think this is I mean, it's a lot of touch points, but I think that's exactly where your tools and tech stack and CRM come to place. Because what do you do with it? You capture these people. Maybe we capture the email, the name, the interest, whether they're looking for volunteering, maybe they're looking for your class, right? Maybe offering some educational classes, dog obedience classes, whatever it is. Once you capture the data, what do you do? So I think this is the perfect place for CRM to come in place because once you have their interest, you can actually start building that engagement strategy. This is something that we recommend to everyone, right? To segment and then create separate series of emails or engagement strategies to do. So to give you an example, and this is just what you can see in Giveffect, but other tools offer that as well. The example would be someone submitted volunteer interest form, right, on your website. What do we do now? We're not going to send them, okay, tomorrow we have a volunteer opportunities, please come to volunteer. And maybe someone will, but it's not always the case. So the recommendation that scenario is to create a series of engagement email. Your first email might be telling them a little bit more about your organization and all the volunteer opportunities that you have. The next email can tell a little bit more about volunteer stories and what impact volunteers do in the community. You can send SMS, you can send another email. But again, going back to those 16 touch points, right? We cannot expect someone to take action immediately. So it does take engagement strategy to do it. And CRM can really help you save time and automate some of those strategies.
This is great because long tail strategy for Google Ads is that if you're running Google Ads for 6 months to a year to 2 years to hopefully years and years to come, you need to be engaging them in different ways. You're going to be collecting data and seeing really what works and what doesn't. Maybe they want to see an email first. Maybe they want to do an SMS. They want a text message. Maybe they want some different type of touch point. This is where a CRM is critical because you want to be testing different things, right? Because the Google ad is here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future, right? So you really want to invest into this as a 1 year, 2 year, multiple year strategy. And that only works with the CRM and the touch points needed to drive that relationship to a deeper level, right? Again, think of the Google ads as a way of driving people to the front door. But once they're in your house, like how you cook them dinner, how you let them sit on your couch, all of these different engagements, that's where you need to think of the CRM and touch points because the Google ad is not that. It does not engage them post site visit. It can only drive the action. And again, if you're constantly thinking about like donation as the primary action, and that's all you think the Google ad's going to do for you, you're going to get disappointed, right? Like that is it's just not the silver bullet. I'm not saying that that can't happen, but
Right.
you need to think bigger picture, longer term growth relationships. And that's where the CRM aspect of it is really balancing. They're two sides to the same coin because a CRM doesn't work without the users, right? So then you need the users, but then once you have the users or the customers, the people of interest, then you need to engage them, right? So I think they're two sides to the same coin. And if you're only looking at one side of the coin, it's not going to work, right? You need to look at it holistically.
Right. And I'm going to add to that. That's why we're talking about long-term strategy, right? So you're getting people through the door, and now it's going to take multiple touch points. And if your end game is to drive donation, that's totally okay. It's just the expectations, it's not going to happen overnight. You will need to create long-term engagement strategy. How many emails you need to send? Maybe you need to invite them for your open house, future events, and so on, get them engaged. And then in a long way, I think donation will come in. It's just not, again, a magic something that happens overnight.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious because one of the questions was, what about events, right? Maybe I'm a nonprofit, I have an event. Is that something, is it a good scenario to kind of promote through Google Ads?
Good question. And this can lead into our Q&A session.
Mhm.
Events are a little bit tricky. Yes, it's something you can do, but oftentimes is the juice worth the squeeze is a question, right? Because you generally tactically for Google Ads for organizations, unless you're really large organizations, the one thing that you cannot control is what people are searching for, right? So if they don't even know that you exist, they're not going to be looking for your event, right? Is your event going to be relevant to them?
Mhm.
Also, Google Ads, generally speaking, works better when you have a wider audience because then you have wider search, right? So if your event is hyper targeted to a geolocation, right? It's like within a small city, you're just not going to have a big enough audience to promote it,
Mhm.
right? So then the amount of work that it takes to create that ad, to run that ad and do everything, is that really worth it? Right. And I'm not saying that it's not, but those are the
Right.
things you have to think through, right? So
Mhm.
then I think in generally speaking, it's better to just run awareness campaigns and like newsletter signups and then engage those people for your event because then they're the one qualified to go to
I
your
see.
event,
Mhm.
right? Like instead of some random new person, like how often, ask yourself, how often do you go to an event that you just learned about or like some organization that you have no connection to? Like, it's just not very often, right? So just really think of it from a relationship standpoint. That said, if it's like a super popular event or a public event, like a county
Mhm.
fair or something like that, that's different, right? Then you will see like, a wider audience. Then you can kind of justify an
Mhm.
investment into, putting the resources to running that ad.
Thank you for that. And with that, we have about 7 more minutes, and we have a few questions that, like I said, everyone kind of sent our way during the registrations, but we want to make sure we're addressing everyone's questions who are here live today. So please don't hesitate to put your questions in the Q&A session, and we'll try to get to all of them. One admin question before I forget. The question was if we're going to share the recording. Yes, we will be sharing this recording. I think by Monday, Tuesday, and then we are planning to share all series recording afterwards. So please stay tuned, and it will be coming in your inbox within a week or so.
Great.
Awesome. So while we are waiting on questions from the live audience, I have another questions for you, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, So we're talking about long-term strategy, right? So you have your Google Ads, you set it up, you learn it, it's running, great. But it's been a few months. Do you need to make what is kind of your suggestions? What do you do if it's been 6 months, 12 months in the long run?
Well,
Any
you
tips?
you want to be investing into it. When we say 10 to 20 hours per week, that's not for the first 6 months. That's not for the
Mhm.
first 3 months. That's every week, right? It because of the grant restrictions as well, you do have to maintain the grant. So it's like it has additional requirements. So it's actually more work than the standard grant account, which makes sense. They're giving you $10,000 in free ads, right? So there's nothing to grumble about here. Like it's the upside is way bigger than the investment, right? But it does require work. Strategy wise, you really want to, get into the nitty gritty like that. I love that demo that you shared of like kind of different ways to engage the users. You want to be testing out different things. So for us right now and our clients, we run new ads every day. We run what's called dynamic ads every day as well. Like simple things like changing out the dates, constantly refreshing keywords. We're always looking at the data and then enhancing each ad performance because what works one day does not mean it'll work tomorrow, right? So
Mhm.
usually because Google, it's a big company, it's a progressive company, their algorithm, the way that they serve ads changes constantly, right? Like I mean almost every day, right? So it's a
Mhm.
smart tech, right? And it's a bidding system. So it's not a set it and forget it. Like just because it worked last week, like it could really like, and it performed really well and then it could do nothing this week, right? So you're constantly having to make adjustments. And again, it's a little bit harder and trickier because there are grant restrictions in addition to all of these complications. So it's something you have to invest into constantly. And if it's not part of a full funnel strategy, which is the CRM and everything else, then it like over time, what we constantly see with most nonprofits is that they just give up on the grant, right? Because it's like, oh, it's not giving me what I wanted it, right? Which is again,
Mhm.
just mismanaged expectations. It's like if you're investing into it and you chip away at it slowly, then you'll see it's a part of a flywheel effect, right? Like it's a really top of funnel
Right.
flywheel effect that'll drive long-term growth, right? That said, Yulia, can you go into maybe one question like I had, like what are some of the stats or things generally
Mm.
speaking that you see like in regards to the relationship aspect that a CRM does, right? Like does it
Yeah.
help drive like, engagement? Like are there any stats you can share there?
Yeah, there are some. That's a great question. I think for it, having a CRM benefiting nonprofits in the long run, right? But there is a ramp up time, and also how much do you utilize in your CRM? I think what we see personally on Giveffect side is when nonprofit come to us and they start using CRM, they typically see about 37% increase in fundraising because they're more engaged with their donors. You have no idea how many stories I've heard about having a gift, and donors not being thanked. So CRM can help you to avoid those types of situations. Just as one quick example, right? CRM helps you to save time and make sure that all the donors are thanked. They all receive your newsletter or other communication. They're all, or those who are interested, invited to your next event. So definitely increase in fundraising overall. Second, we see a higher retention because again, we're staying in contact, right? And the third one, I think it's very big actually because it's time saving.
Mm,
On Giveffect side, it's 30, 40 hours a month of not doing manual data and manual communications. I'm sure other platforms also have their own statistics, but definitely by implementing CRM, you will save time because you're minimizing the time of emails you're sending from your inbox, calls you're doing, and so on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I just to add to that a little bit, for every nonprofit here, and this is just a reality check, it's not a if I build it, they will come. Right? Like you need to drive people to that's what the Google ad is. It's like, hey, I've invested into this amazing website or this amazing newsletter or this amazing CRM system. But like now, how do I get people to it? Like just because you exist doesn't mean that they're gonna come to you, right? Like the internet is a very noisy place. We're constantly fighting for attention, right? Like we call it the attention economy, right? So the CRM is meant to keep that intention, to drive that attention. The Google ad is meant to get them to the front door, right? Like
Mhm.
again, we can't control like who wants to go to the front door, but we want to find the people that do, right? And it's really the quality of those relationships ultimately in the long-term strategy, in my opinion, that will drive the conversions and the success of your organization, right? Because whether it's donors, people that need your product or services or want to support and donate to your organization, that is your lifeline, right? Like, and that relationship aspect of it is going to be the success of what you guys do.
So we have a couple questions in the Q&A I want to address. We have like 1 minute, but two questions are kind of similar. What are some of the best CRM software, and would you consider MailChimp a good CRM software? I'm biased. I'm gonna say Giveffect, but there are a lot of tools out there. I think from my end, I would just suggest when you're looking at CRM, best CRM is really hard to say. Best CRM will be different for you versus another nonprofit. But my suggestions when you look into the CRM, look into those that will help you seamlessly integrate your website, right, into your database and help you automate a lot of the manual actions. I don't know if Andy, if you have any recommendations there.
Yeah, I think there's too many, to be honest, in the nonprofit space, which also makes it very complicated. And speaking very candidly, and I've said this before, there's a lot of shitty ones, right? There's a lot of really bad tech in the space as well. So one, I think Giveffect, obviously that comes with a recommendation. We're doing this program together. Like we wouldn't do this without understanding the product. Two, I would say every organization is different. The size of your organization also dictates the tech stack and the tech needs that you have. Just like I said, I don't think the Google Ad Grant, just because it's available, doesn't mean it's the right fit for everybody, right? Because it's a lot of time and energy that you have to invest into it. Like, is it the right fit for you? And timing is everything, right? Just because something, a tech worked for you today doesn't mean it's going to work for you tomorrow. CRM is the same thing, right? I think at the level of your organization, the amount of traffic and everything that you have, I think you need to identify your pain points first and then find the right fit based on the size of your organizations and the needs of your organizations, right? And just really do the research there. But this can be something we dive into a little bit more, maybe in a future speed learning session.
Yeah. And happy, yeah, to connect one-on-one. The one thing I'm gonna say, I think MailChimp is a great marketing software. I would look into the CRM. If you like MailChimp, I would look into CRM that integrates with MailChimp if you want to use it. And last, we have very technical question. I don't know, Andy, if you can see the Q&A, if you can take a look. I think it's technical connected to Google account.
I don't see the question. Can you read it?
Oh, okay. My screen keeps on getting stuck on fixed errors, but nothing is red that needs to be fixed. I tried to call help center, and because it's in an ad grant or not a paid ad, they send you to a number that is not, basically cannot get to anyone to
Yeah,
do
well,
to help.
I
I
think
don't know if you have any recommendations.
that's more of an offline question. So feel
Okay.
free to hit our interest form. Maybe someone on our team can help. We would need to understand the problem a little bit more, but yeah, we're happy to help guide that if that's an issue. But yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions and engagement, and Andy for your time and expertise. If you're interested to learn more about Google Ad Grants management, free training sessions, but also paid services that Andy and his team has, there is a form in a chat, so please take a look. And we're going to be sending email and we're going to be sending those recordings, and we really appreciate everyone's time and spending 3 weeks with us learning and diving into this topic.
Thank you so much, Julia. Appreciate everyone making time, and I hope everyone, wishing everyone the best success. And just feel free to reach out. Happy to be a resource. And Julia and the whole Giveffect team, thank you so much for being such great hosts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy, and do good for it.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.